override in 2009 based on the 3-year plan would be $265, and the override in FY 2010 would be $180. And that's based on assuming bachelor reimbursement. I didn't run the slides for non-reimbursement. So what is the difference between 1 year and the proposed 3-year override? First of all, the 3-year override provides a longer range view of the needs of the school department. It adds 11.9 positions in 2009, in addition to the 8 in 2008, and adds 10.7 in 2010. It adds new programs in the world, languages, and health, provides longer range view of the needs of general government by adding 4 firefighters in FY 2009, and eliminates the need for budget override in FY 2009 and 10. So the override question, and this is basically the question that the board, if in fact town meeting votes in favor of the override in 2008, we will vote this evening after town meeting closes to put 2 ballot questions on the ballot. First is to see if the town will approve a general override of Proposition 2.5 of $1,525,282. And the second would be to see if the town will approve a general override of Proposition 2.5 of $3,758,963. For those out there that are watching my numbers very carefully, you'll see that the $3,758,963 number is a little lower than the 3.9 number that we projected for the overall override for 3 years. And the reason for that is if we vote this now, next year that number gets increased by 2.5% automatically too, and the following year. And if you do the math, you find out it matches what's required for an override for the year 2010. And that's the end of my presentation. I believe the superintendent has a presentation.
Good evening, and thank you. I'd like to make a presentation on the school department budget, and you do not have a handout for this, but I'd like to walk you through. The title of the presentation that I've been using this year for the budget, Tough Choices or Tough Times, is not my title. It comes from a national report that recently was released through the National Center for Education and the Economy. And our Commissioner of Education in Massachusetts, David Driscoll, served also with outgoing Superintendent of Schools, Tom Pazon from Boston, on this national panel to really think about what is needed for the coming years to restructure public schools in America. And the title of that report is Tough Choices or Tough Times. I certainly would urge anyone to take a look and read this report very carefully, because it not only speaks to a national problem, but speaks to the issues that we have right here in North Reading. Each year, the school committee establishes a number of goals for its budget, and the very first goal was to establish a 3-year comprehensive budget, which Mr. Mosseri has outlined for you. The school committee also intends to continue to work on its long-term planning to look at ways to improve the North Reading Public Schools. And in concert with that, looking at ways to continue to provide services and materials to students to make sure that North Reading students are competitive, not only with students from Massachusetts and surrounding communities, but in other states and also in other countries. The fourth goal is to maintain a commitment to the school building needs plan, and with the opening of the Bachelor School this September, we're well on our way to that. And lastly, the school committee intends to continue to look at all potential revenue sources. When we think about the school budget, or when I think about the school budget, typically we break it down in terms of the fixed areas or the non-salary portion, which represents 21% of the budget. And I say that because these areas are very difficult to change in any way, because it's dealing with basic utilities, dealing with areas of transportation that we must provide, and dealing with special education costs, either here in the district or out of the district. Clearly, the largest percentage of the cost in the school department would be human resources, and it accounts for 79% of the budget. The school committee and the school department over the last number of years continues to take very aggressive measures to save money in terms of the budget. We look particularly in special education to form partnerships with other communities. We're a member of 2 collaboratives where we will be educating students out of the district. We also work cooperatively with many other communities in the purchase of utilities, paper and supplies, technology resources, and telephone services. Obviously, within our schools, I get lots of complaints in the wintertime because we turn our thermostats down. They do not call me Yukon Dave or for any other good reason, other than I do think that we take a strong look at the temperature of our buildings. It's a way to save energy. We've also undergone energy audits, and that has caused us to restructure how we light our buildings. Recently, we are continuing to implement an in-house special ed transportation, both within the district and to outside of the district, and we do that through our own van services rather than contracting with outside transportation vehicles. And lastly, we're very aggressive in terms of grants, particularly for professional development. Some other areas in which we can attempt to bridge the gap would be looking to fund services through user fees, although I will admit at this point the school committee feels very strongly that we cannot continue to increase those user fees. Those fees would be for athletic programs, for where we're charging this year $300 for the first sport and $100 for each of the second and third sports. We're charging activity fees for any student in grade 6 and up at $125 a year. We're obviously charging for any student who is enrolled in our full-day kindergarten program. It's an at-cost program at $4,000 a year, and also for our preschool program at $2,750 a year. So the school committee feels, I also should mention, the busing fee is $250 per student with a $450 cap. At this point, the school committee feels it really cannot assess families anymore through user fees. So the bottom line is Mr. Messeri has explained, I think, very clearly that there's a structural problem. And that problem exists both on the town as well as the school side. We are constrained within the limits of Prop 2.5. The bottom line is, as superintendent and as school committee, when we're thinking about the budget, if we intend to move forward with the same level of services, then we either have to raise revenue or we need to reduce the services or do things in a very different way. As Mr. Messeri outlined, this budget process is almost a 12-month ongoing around-the-clock process. I would say the school committee and the school department have worked very closely with the finance committee and with the board of selectmen throughout this past year to take a very close look at revenue and what kind of budget can we reasonably step before community and offer a recommendation. So the school committee has adopted a level services budget for next year, and it also understands what it means to live within a balanced or available funds budget. Let me explain what a level services budget is. The level service budget is attempting to provide next year, FY08, the same level of services that we're currently providing. It's not increasing any new programs for next year. We're not adding health education, even though we would like to offer health education in the middle school. We're not offering it. We're not offering any new foreign language in our schools, even though I've recently come back from China, and I think it's vital that our students be learning Chinese and starting foreign language in the elementary school. We're holding the line very much in the programs that we have in place. However, the cost of services and goods is increasing annually between 5 and 6%. And as I said previously, we feel that we cannot recoup any additional revenue through user fees. So what will that level services budget do? It is requiring or requesting 8 additional teachers. And one might quickly ask, well, the superintendent just said you're not adding new programs. So where are these new teachers coming from? The new teachers are focused primarily on addressing class size issues in our middle school to a great extent. 4 of the teachers are addressing core class sizes. And I'll show you some graphs that depict the fact that in every one of our classes in the middle school in grades 6, 7, and 8, we're in the upper 20s and in many cases over 30 students in basic math, English, science, and social studies classes. The same thing is true in our foreign language classes in grades 7 and 8. Over 90% of our students are taking introductory Spanish and French starting in the 7th grade, and all of those class sizes are in the upper 20s to over 30. You're also asking for a middle school special education teacher. I can tell you quite honestly, if this is not funded or if I don't hire this teacher, then I'm going to be actually incurring a greater cost because I know that I can't support programs here in North Reading in special education and in inclusion. And those parents of those children will be advocating for out-of-district placement, where the tuition cost is generally in excess of $35,000 plus transportation costs. We're asking for 1 high school academic teacher to deal with class size issues, and we're also requesting an elementary special education teacher for the same reason that we're looking for a middle school special education teacher. Here's a graph. You may not be able to read all of the fine print, but it's showing, starting with the left, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. You can see that in the 6th grade, the average class size is 27. Those children will be moving on to 7th grade next year, and we will have 35 more students in our 6th grade next year. And with 8 teachers, that will increase that average class size by at least 4 students per class. So it's very easy math to see that in the 6th grade next year, we'll be talking 30 and 31 students in every class, math, English, science, social studies, and all of the music and art and so forth. The red or deep purple, which is the lowest graph, actually occurred 3 years ago, which was the year that we were able to achieve the last override. And you can see that we were able to deal with this problem in class size in the middle school. But since then, due to increasing enrollments, we're back actually worse than where we were 3 years ago. Our high school continues to show problems in various subjects. Here we're seeing English classes, 9, 10, and literature and British Lit in 11 and 12, as well as social studies classes at the high school, U.S. history, world history, and you can see that the vast majority of classes are in the upper 20s, and a number of them are reaching over 30. In my judgment, this is not the kind of education that we can continue to provide with a high level of quality. Here are our high school math and science classes for the last 4 years. And again, while we've made some strides in some of the classes, we're not being consistent all across the board. And we have many classes in our high school in basic math and science classes that are in the upper 20s and in some cases reaching 30. And lastly, this is showing the elective classes. Our students are taking from art and music. I'm very concerned about the art classes. And frankly, if you're opting a requirement that says that students need to be taking fine arts at least 1 year of a music or art in order to graduate from high school, and to put them in classes where those classes are over 30, the amount of attention that those students are receiving per class is relatively low. So the level services budget is attempting to deal with that problem. It is not adding new programs. It's simply trying to deal with class size and trying to deal with issues in special education. On the other hand, as Mr. Messeri outlined for you, we are looking at, we are understanding of what amount of money is